happiness in the workplace is I tell everyone, start your day by saying, I'm a happy person. Because it doesn't have to be true when you say it, but saying it makes it more true. And so if you say, I'm going to be on top of the world today, and then you spill your coffee all over the report that you need to turn in that you've been working on for the last week, yes, you're angry, you're frustrated, but because you've said that, you have more control over how you respond. This is one of the things that's really important for people to remember. You actually don't control the outcome of your efforts. You control how much effort you put in, and you control how you respond to the outcome of your efforts. But for example, if you spend a month on an amazing marketing report, and as you turn it in, your boss says, oh, we're not offering that product anymore. All you control is whether or not you let that ruin your day, or you let that ruin your month. This is especially true for entrepreneurs. I don't know if anyone in our audience self-employed or entrepreneurial. Okay. But it's especially true if you're an entrepreneur. You have no control over the outcome. It doesn't matter how much marketing you do. Sometimes people don't walk in the door that day. And so if you can't control the outcome, control how you respond to the outcome. Once you've set an intention for happiness, it's easier to stay happy. But I'll also caution, Sister Jenna, you chose the phrase, I'm going to be on top of the world today. That's a little far-reaching. You may want to choose, I'm going to feel like I got a lot done today. That's how you can set the intention.
Happy I wake up in the morning.
So one of the other things that we touch, so when you start your day with that intention, there's another thing I want you to do every day. And when I'm live in the room doing this talk, I have the Post-it notes for people, but I couldn't transmit Post-it notes through the internet. So I don't know if you have Post-it notes there that people can be given. But here's a really important thing to do. Pick one thing that you will do that day, and that has to be something you will get done. Don't choose revamp the marketing department. That's not getting done that day. It can be empty the trash. It can be clear out my inbox. Or if you have to revamp the marketing department, it can be review resumes of the new marketing director, or review the logos that got submitted. But if you pick one thing that you will get done every day, and you write that down on a Post-it note. So when you get to your spot, you set your intention for the day, I'm going to have a happy day today, and then you sit down and pick one thing you will do that day. You write it on a Post-it note, and you tack it up somewhere, and it's somewhere that's in your eye line. It's somewhere that you can see during your day, I will get that done. I will get that done today. And when I get that done, I will feel great. I will feel like I accomplished something. That's something I will do today. Every time you look at it, think, oh, I'll be so happy when I do that. That's in your I'm going to do it spot. I'll be so happy when I do that. And then, when you do it, when you finish that task, you take that Post-it note from that I'll be happy when I do it. Let me use a Post-it note for effect. So you take that Post-it note out of the I'll be happy when I do it spot, and you put it up somewhere else. And that somewhere else is the I'm happy I did it spot. And now, for the rest of the day, no matter what else is going on, you can glance at your Post-it note and you can say, oh, got that done. I got that done. All right. Shoo, I'm happy I got that done today. Why? Why do you do that? Well, I'll ask the crowd. How many times do you get to the end of your workday and you think, ugh, I got nothing done today? Has that ever happened? By show of hands, has anyone ever gotten to the end of the day and said, oh, I did nothing today? You did something. You got something done that day. I promise you, you got something done that day. And 76% of all job satisfaction comes from a sense of accomplishment. So don't rob yourself of the sense of accomplishment by telling yourself you got nothing done. Force yourself to acknowledge when you get at least something done. So you start every day with writing on a Post-it note one thing, just one thing I will get done today. Put it in that I'll be happy when I do it spot. And then when you do it and you move it, get the big boost of happy. I did it, I did it. Look at this, I got it done. And then you put it in that I'm happy I did it spot. And you leave it there for the rest of the day. And then at the end of the day, when your workday ends, you take that Post-it note and you crumple it up and you throw it away. Because that's how you end your workday. That way, you're not mentally taking your workday home with you. You physically end your workday by crumpling that Post-it note and throwing it away. And if you are taking work home with you, if you have something you have to get done that night, take the Post-it note and stick it on the work you're taking home with you and have that at home, and when you finish the work you're doing that night, then you crumple up the Post-it note and you throw it away. Because you're going to need the space to do it again tomorrow. So that is how you, thank you. That is how you start and end your workday happy. Because
it's so simple.
It's so simple. And you give yourself that sense of accomplishment. And one of the things that makes someone a really bad boss is not acknowledging what their employees are doing for them. There's a phrase, acknowledge in public, admonish in private. This is the way to have very good workers and have people who are loyal to you and give you their best. But don't be a bad boss to yourself. Don't take away your own sense of accomplishment. So I want to take a quick side jog here. How many people in this room manage other employees? Does anyone here? Okay, there's good. I want to give an example that when I do talks at companies, I do the happiness talk for happiness in the workplace privately for companies. I always try to use an example from their workplace. And one I had recently was at a YMCA, where I was doing the executive retreat and helping them understand how to bring happiness into their management techniques. And I said, has this ever happened? Somebody's job is to mop the floor, and you tell him, I need you to mop the floor and set up tables for our event. And he starts mopping the floor, and then people start showing up for the event. And the tables aren't set up yet. And so what does the manager do? The manager goes and says, oh, people are here, go set up the tables. Now, as a manager, you might think, yeah, that's right. That's what needed to get done. But here's what the employee hears. The employee hears, you're doing the wrong thing. You weren't doing it quickly enough. The employee doesn't know whether they're supposed to go back to that task that they were taken away from. And they don't know which is the better use of their time. They just know that you're responding to what I call the tyranny of the urgent. It's urgent now that those tables get set up. Here is how you communicate that to that employee. First off, as a manager, everything is good. So you go to the employee and you say, great news, people are showing up for the event already. Thank you for mopping the floor. I'm going to need you to get back to that. But for right now, I have something more important I need you to do. Please go set up the tables. It's taken about 10 seconds longer to communicate in the second way than in the first way. But does everyone see how much more effective that is?
Of course. The languaging makes a big difference, and I have to speak to you from a cultural stance because in the East, or rather in India, it is sort of customary to not keep praising or admiring someone's efforts in public. You know, it's just not there as a culture. You don't hear anyone saying, "Oh, Krishna, you're the best and we love you and keep going." It's just not there. But if Krishna messes up, he'll be like, "Why are you doing that?" And then you'll get pinched or slapped or something. But it's functioning in the country. But I'm just saying that there are some cultural differences here, and I think they're very important to be observed, because when I came into the Brahma Kumaris, it was a big cultural shift, even though I'm half Indian and half Western, half African. I still had more of the Western influence in my consciousness. And when I entered into a spiritual organization that was heavily rooted in Indian culture, I had to kind of learn a lot of things, like maybe it isn't the way. Maybe I don't need to be friendly and sweet and hugging everybody all the time. Maybe that's not the way that it works. So I had to go through a lot of different stages of trying to understand what's the best way to do things. And so, like you were sharing earlier, praise sort of in public and admonish in private. So in some sense, it was the opposite for me. You were told what you were doing wrong in public, and in private they might have been telling other people, you know, she's really not so bad.
Right.
But you would never hear that. So on a spiritual level, it attacks your self-worth, and it attacks where you are coming from at a very deep level. And for me, it made me do deeper soul searching to see that I don't put myself in an emotional or spiritual position where I'm not secure within myself. So I'm just throwing that out there, that you can get so used to the outside praise and you're thinking that you're fine. But what happens when you're not getting the outside praise? Are you still fine? Are you still secure? That's really the point that I'm making.
But I have to ask you, I'm so curious about this. How do you feel in terms of the Eastern method of you're never good enough, you work harder? Do you feel that yields greater results, or do you feel that a system in which you acknowledge what people have done, it's tough?
To be quite honest, I think there are two dimensions to it. I think when it was the first part, the Eastern part, I had to do soul searching. Jenna had to recognize that she was valuable. It was very private, it was very deep. Now when I get all of those, like, oh, you're doing great, you're amazing, you're wonderful, it doesn't really do much for me. Because at the end of the day, it's about me on the inside deeply.
Interesting.
So I'm just I'm throwing that out now. But in terms of my leadership here, I've learned, or I continue to learn, to be the best that I can be in terms of valuing everyone that's around me. And that's been very important for me, to value everyone around me. And I think that's what has made our team here so strong and so effective.
Absolutely. Also, Sister Jenna, I don't think I could fathom you saying a mean thing to somebody. No, it's not going to happen. but if you want, the best way, if you want to communicate to an employee with clarity about what they're doing, is let them know in what stage of the task they're in. For example, thank you for mopping the floor. I'm going to need you to finish that. Let them know where they are, that they're not doing anything wrong by not being done. And if they are doing something wrong by not being done, then you can say, thank you for finishing the floor. I'm going to need you to finish that a little more quickly. But let the employee know where they stand. Uncertainty is a cause of a great deal of stress for employees. So let the employee know where they stand. If they're doing their job well, acknowledging it is not about endless praise. It's not saying, oh, you're the best floor mopper we've ever had. It's just, thanks for doing that. That's a very simple way to let someone know they're on track and that you recognize that. But then when you say, but something more important came up and I need you to handle it. This is an enormous boost in confidence for that employee, and it will result in an enormous boost of loyalty. People are more loyal in jobs where they're given more responsibility. And even if the job is setting up tables in a courtyard, which to most of us seems like one of the most mindless things you can be asked to do, if you can present that to someone as, I have something immediate that's important, please handle it, that person is going to feel a sense of ownership over that task, and they're going to perform that task at a much higher level. And so look at how you communicate with your employees, look at how your managers communicate with your employees, and make sure that there's clarity at all time, that the employee knows what the task is and what their state is in the task. Make sure there's acknowledgement of what they're doing, and then find a way to build a sense of accomplishment into what they're being asked to do. And then a thank you. It doesn't have to be constant, but at least once a week, every one of your employees should be thanked for something they're doing. Because, yeah, and I say when I do individual coaching with people, especially in career transitions, I have to say a lot, they're not doing you a favor by giving you a job. You're providing them with a resource they need.
Do we have any time for questions from anyone in the audience that would like to engage with you for a little?
We can, yes, we can pause here and ask some questions, and then we can continue with more of the talk.
Would you prefer with the workshop?
No. If people have questions now, why don't we do this? If people have questions now, I can see, I think, everyone in the room. So if anyone has questions at any point, yes, just raise, and then we'll stop and ask.
My question is, that in the workplace, there seem to be, from some things that I've read, that people are kind of split one way or the other. They're either a paycheck person or a career person. And paycheck folks are looking for Friday. How you doing today, Frank? Well, it's 4 more days till Friday. And I say, good, Frank, it's 3 days till Friday. And he's just counting it down, as opposed to career folks that work the extra hours, that are highly motivated because they're really into what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, working with paycheck folks can sometimes really be depressing. Speaking about happiness. And so I get around a lot of those folks sometimes, folks that do help desk work, where help desk, talk about need for praise. I mean, sometimes it's just constant need for support from them. So it's no wonder that sometimes they get so burned out. But that's that situation, the paycheck situation of looking for Friday all the time. What do you say to that?
Great question.
This is one of the things I think we have to acknowledge, is that everybody has a different definition of success. Two people in the exact same job, say working on a help desk, someone's definition of success is going to be becoming the help desk assistant manager and then becoming the help desk manager. And someone else's definition of success is going to be earning enough money to be able to go surfing every weekend. And neither of those people is wrong as long as they're doing the job they've been hired to do. And I know you feel it's very frustrating dealing with the put in my hours, get my paycheck, go live the life I want to live. Because that's not your mindset. Your definition of success is advancement in your career. But someone else's definition of success is different. If they're not doing their job, then that's the thing, that's the area where you need to talk. You need to figure out how to get them to, and look, if the paycheck motivates them, then the paycheck going away is a serious factor. So if you want that person to take on more responsibility, then you would have to pay them more, because they have found a niche that they like, that they want to do, and it makes them happy. If you just want that person to have a better attitude and be more cheerful and more sunny in their job every day, implement that as part of the review. And then make sure that's coming from the top down. You cannot ask somebody to be cheerful and happy every day unless they're seeing examples of cheerful and happy every day around them. I believe all culture comes from the top down. Whether it's in a country, countries sort of take on the personality of their leaders. When the leader is grim and doom, the country seems grim and doom. When the leader is hopeful, the country seems hopeful. And as a leader, if you walk in and set the bar for happiness every day, it's going to encourage more happiness in the workplace. If there are people who are not coming on board, you have to decide, am I getting what I need from these people for what I'm paying them for? Is this person, if the requirement on a help desk is to provide competent service to 8 people a day and that person does it, they've done their job. If the requirement is to provide friendly, happy service to 8 people a day and they're not doing that, then you can discuss with them, this is the kind of behavior I need to see. One of the really important areas, though, that as a manager we all have to be aware of. As employees, we have to be aware of it, but as management, we really have to be aware of it, is the toxic employee. Because that's so much worse than just somebody who's checked out or not engaged or a paycheck employee. There are so many people in the workplace who cost companies an enormous amount of money by making it a miserable place to work for other people. My mother is in her 70s. Her very first job in 1959, she was in what was called the steno pool. She worked at an insurance company where not every executive had their own secretary because they didn't need that. So they had 9 girls who all worked at a little center thing of desks. They sat at 9 desks, and when somebody needed something typed up, he called the steno pool, and they sent someone to take stenography and then go type up his letter, his memo. Nobody had typewriters on their desks. And her steno pool, because this was in a day when office equipment was expensive and heavy and companies didn't waste resources, there was one stapler. There was one stapler for the steno pool because that's all they really needed among the 9 women. But it was kept at the desk of the woman who sat in the center of the 9 desks. And let me share with you, God help you if you needed to staple something. She had decided that the amount of power she got from controlling the stapler allowed her to make everybody else miserable. And the company didn't pay enough attention to that, to the point where every woman there who was a really good, competent stenographer was able to get a better job. And the ones who weren't just stayed. And without paying attention to one employee who made everybody else miserable, they allowed themselves to lose really, really good employees. And I used to practice law. I was a lawyer, and we had a toxic attorney in my group, and it took the firm years to fire him. And we lost a lot of good lawyers before they finally got around to firing him, and they fired him for something very unrelated to how he treated the rest of us. And there are very easy ways to spot when somebody is toxic. If I was at a company recently and we were having this conversation, and one of the women said, "Oh, that's so funny. We have a division here that when we have to send, they have a temp pool of assistants." And she said, "Whenever we have to send an assistant to that division, nobody wants to go." And I said, there's something toxic about that division, and it's costing you a lot more money than just the temps not wanting to go there. And so if you have a department that has higher absenteeism than the other departments, if you have a department that has high turnover, if there are 2 desks next to each other in one part of the office, and one desk seems to have people who quit a lot, go spend some time with the person who sits at the other desk. because you have to stop toxic. You have to, like, instantly, as soon as you realize someone is toxic in your workplace, stop them. And it doesn't have to be that they get fired, but their behavior has to be modified. I say counsel, coach, or can. But if you have someone in your workplace who has decided that whatever little amount of power their job gives them allows them to make other people miserable. And I want to go, there's many definitions of toxic in a workplace. There's the bully, there's the complainer. Pay very close attention to the people who complain all the time in their jobs. Those are people that it's a really good idea to have a conversation with. To just say, what can we do to make sure you find greater satisfaction in this job, but even when you're not finding satisfaction, you don't air those grievances among other people. And those tiny moments of counseling can save your company a lot of money, and they can make you much happier in your day-to-day job, either as a manager or as someone who wants to work with that person. Now, sometimes you are not the person who has any control over the toxic employee's behavior, and you have to work with them, and you have no choice. So I'm going to teach everybody a fabulous technique for this. And I think, Sister Jenna, you are going to appreciate this as much as anyone, because I imagine you've probably already do this, but you are going to be, you will do it as successfully as anyone else, because I know how you have control over your spiritual being. If you are encountering somebody who is toxic and you start to realize that they're having an effect on you, for me, I notice it when my shoulders go like this. If I'm talking to somebody and all of a sudden I start feeling myself, I'm like this, I think, oh, this person's toxic. And so what I do is I visualize, I say, not out loud, because that might cause a problem, but I say to myself, energy shields up. And I place an energy shield between me and that person. And for me, I have, build your own energy shield. This is really important. This is going to be a very useful tool in your toolbox. Think of it like a video game where you're running along and you get to reach down and pick something up. That's your energy shield. Mine is a sheet of ice. I like thinking of a thick sheet of ice. For some people, it's metal bars. For some people, it's glass. Or someone, it's strong wind. One woman said, mine's a fire, which I thought was very funny. But when I catch myself doing this around someone, I visualize a giant wall of ice just shoo, dropping between us. And then what can happen is I still hear their words. I still respond to their words because I need to do that to get my work done. But the energy of their words hits that wall of ice and just dribbles down into a puddle. And so that's how you protect yourself from the toxic person or toxic family member or toxic neighbor that you have to deal with, but you can't get away from. If you can visualize an energy shield between you and that person, then you can respond but not react. And that's really okay.
No, it's interesting because you got a lot of yeah, and we have a question because it's really quite profound, because you can see then at the workplace a lot of us are experiencing emotional stuff.
Okay.
Yes, I'm going to speak for educators. I'm a bilingual teacher in Washington, D.C. I traveled to 6 schools, and talking about toxic, the teachers are so stressed. I pull kids out from other countries and work with them in English skills and other things. And there is so much stress and so much negativity, and you have to be really hard and tough. That where I seem to get the happiness or the, oh my God, I'm going to survive this day, is through the children. Either a kindergarten kid or a senior, you pull them out and you look at them and you just talk to them for a minute and you say, my God, there's joy. The children, thank God, they always have the joy. So I am trying to represent to you now so many educators from elementary school to universities that are going through all this transition of testing 1, 2, 3, and how it's very hard to keep the joy, because if you smile or you try, they see this as a weakness. Like if you're nice, it's a sign of weakness. You have to be tough and hard, and especially if you're working in inner city schools or in the city, the seat of power, Washington, D.C. So how do you work with teachers and students, and anything up your sleeve for this one? Thank you.
I have not done workplace work with teachers. I have one happiness coaching client who is a teacher, but she works at a private school, so it's probably not the same experience. But I do think one of the things that happens with teachers is that loss of that sense of accomplishment because of the testing, because of the rigor. And so one of the things I counsel within companies is to have a happiness buddy. Have somebody else that when you're having your worst day, you can walk over to that person and you say, I need it. And they say, okay, this is what you can be happy about right now, this is what you can be happy about right now, and this is what you can be happy about right now. And that person can bring you back. They can bring you back and recenter you. And I think that would probably help teachers a lot. Teachers are fighting such an uphill battle right now because the job has been made so much less rewarding than it should be. It is such an incredibly rewarding job, and the battery of testing has gotten completely out of control, and it's just ridiculous. One thing teachers can do, well, teachers have to be aware that what they're doing is working, even when they're not being given that feedback. That's part of, like, the Post-it note technique is going to really be effective for teachers. This is what I will get done today, and at the end of the day, crumple it up, and boy, leave that back at the school, and then go home and with a clear mind, and this is what I got done today. But one thing that you can share with teachers, and teachers should be sharing with each other, things like within a school, oh, a teacher should be telling other teachers, I got so-and-so who you had last year in 3rd grade. She really understands fractions. Thank you for that. Because the sense of accomplishment that has been taken out of that profession in a ridiculous and ludicrous way, because it is one of the most accomplished professions you can have, in the sense that what you do every single day affects other human beings in ways that will change the rest of their lives. I think the idea of setting your own happiness baseline using signal boosters and signal disruptors. A signal booster is a little thing when you're naturally happy, when something great just happened in the classroom. Try, if you can, out loud, say, ooh, I'm a happy person. I would actually like to see happiness brought into the classroom as a goal for the students. And I know you're saying the inner city schools have these requirements of toughness, and I haven't taught there, and so I'm not going to speak to this from a sense of this is the answer because I'm not there. But maybe a teacher should set the intention with their class, with his or her class, and say, I would like us to all learn everything we have to learn this year and be happy doing it. What's that going to take? And maybe the students have ideas about that. Maybe the students are going to say, here's what would make me happy. I have a family member who has 2 children, a daughter who is perfect, and a son who has severe behavioral problems. And these children are a year apart. And the son, there's a whole team that works around him, you know, that there's programs and everything. And I was at her house one day, and the 2 kids came running in from the bus at the exact same time. And she said to her daughter as she came in the door, did you have fun in school today? And her daughter's like, yes, and rah, 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 and she told her all the things she'd done in school that day. And then she turned to her son and she said, did you get in trouble today? And he said, no. And she said, really? Do I have to call? And he got so frustrated. And he said, no. And then she said, don't raise your voice. And I was so heartbroken. I'm not in that family. I can't judge in any way what led up to that moment. But all I could think is, wouldn't it be awesome if she set the expectation for her son that he'd have fun in school? It would have been so nice when he ran through that door if she said to him, did you have fun in school today? And I bet, oh, by the way, he hates school. Hates it. But that's because school is an incredible challenge for him because his little brain is constantly trying to keep his emotions under control. He doesn't process the way the rest of us do. And the exhaustion of sitting in a classroom and keeping his emotions under control is so hard for him. And so he hates having to do it. And all I could think is, if every single day for a month when he walked through the door, she said, did you have fun in school today? Eventually, he might start getting the message, oh, I'm supposed to be having fun in school. And maybe he'd start having fun. So I hope that answers. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was a great answer. Well, any more questions? No? That's a fantastic thing because I saw an article today in the Post about educators and teachers are now leaving their profession because they don't feel supported at the level of the talk or even what's going on in the classrooms. They're also quite challenging. And so if we lose our teachers, what future does the world have, you know?
It's awful.
So I think setting the intention is very powerful.
Mm-hmm. And parents can be really helpful too, and the school should also maybe put that out there and say to the parent, this is not unrelated to what I'm about to say, but I hope everyone does this, starts to do this. Every single time I have a good customer service experience somewhere, I go and ask for the manager, and I tell the manager, even if I'm running late, even if I have somewhere else I have to be, I still stop, find the manager, and say, hey, I just got great service at the butcher shop. Hey, this bartender went way above and beyond the call of duty. And I've called the 800 number at McDonald's because we have a McDonald's near our house that has the greatest employees. They're so nice. It's almost like it's not McDonald's. They're so friendly. And that is an extremely important thing to do. And that's something schools should be communicating to parents. If your kid has a good day in school, if your kid comes home and says, yes, I had so much fun in school today, here's what we did, blah, 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 pick up the phone and call the teacher and say, just want to let you know, Janie had a great day in school today. I really appreciate it. That will keep people in the teaching profession a lot longer. So.
Fantastic. Valerie, you've got to take us through perhaps the rest of the workshop paper or something, because I know that we have like another only 10 minutes left, and would love to take advantage of your time. And I think we would like to do this again with you because I think Washingtonians would appreciate this quality of conversation, because the environment here basically really needs this.
It really needs it. And again, that goes back to it coming from the top down. If we could get more happiness and appreciation in Washington, that flows to the whole rest of the country. So I do want to go through the worksheet with everybody because I want you to have these techniques when you go back to your workplace. The next thing I talk about is your awful task, which is there's a rumor that Mark Twain said, if you start your day every day by eating a live frog, that will be the worst thing that happens to you all day. First off, Mark Twain did not say that. There was some French count in the 16th century who said that. He was talking about going to court and how before going to court he eats a live frog to make court more bearable. But if I ate a live frog first thing in the morning, that would not be the worst thing that happened to me. The worst thing would happen minutes later. But the thing I don't like about that notion, a lot of business books picked up on this. A lot of business gurus were like, yeah, eat that frog, which is this idea of if you got something awful to do, get it out of the way. Or change your mindset about the task. Rather than say, I'm going to eat a frog and get it out of the way and that'll be done. Look at the thing you have to do that you are dreading. And you probably have something coming up in the next month that you do not want to do, that you are absolutely dreading. It could be your corporate taxes. It could be anything. Whatever it is you have to do, instead of thinking, this is awful, it's awful, I'll get it out of the way, think, how will doing this make me happy? And then list all the ways that doing that will make you happy. And go crazy. Be as creative as you can. When I do this workshop live and I'm in the room and we have a little more time, the example we use as a group is getting a root canal. How can getting a root canal make you happy? And unfortunately we don't have time, so I will run through the list that we always come up with. Someone always says right away, no pain. Yes, getting a root canal means you don't have the pain. So that's a great way to make you happy. But I can get to 10 on this scale. Let me see. I just said that out loud without realizing. Okay, you don't have pain anymore. You get to keep the tooth. So let's just say, I'm happy I won't have pain. I'm happy I get to keep the tooth. I'm happy I live in a country and in an era where the root canal technology exists. I'm happy I have the financial resources to cover getting a root canal. Or I'm happy I have a job that provides me with dental insurance so I can do this. I'm happy I'm going to get drugs that I like. I'm happy that I can garner sympathy once I get my root canal. That's good for 2, maybe 3 days. I'm happy that once I have the root canal, I'll be able to eat ice cream. I'm happy that I won't be at work for a couple of hours. And I said 10, so let me come up with a 10th. I'm happy that the dentist is cute and I get to look at him for an hour. Any task you have coming up, force yourself to get as creative as you possibly can to come up with as many ways as possible that doing that task will make you happy, rather than thinking it's going to be awful and I have to get it out of the way. Because if you can have that mindset, that will carry you through not only the completion of the task, it'll carry you through while you're actually doing it. While you're doing something miserable, you can still be running that tape through your head of all the ways that doing that miserable thing will make you happy. So the other technique I want to talk about in your workplace, one of the ways to have be happy in your workplace is to have a happy workspace. Make your environment for yourself in your workspace happy. It can be have a little plant, it can be pictures of your family, but here's something really fun. And this is a technique I created. I created this for the book, for the Happiness as a Second Language book, and it's not very well explained in the book. But here's the idea. Think of your happiest memory. Think of something small, not when you said I do or when your child was born. Think about something small, but that just makes you giddy. For me, I have a really happy story about my prom. It was like I was a sophomore and I got to go to the senior prom. I'll spare the story because we're low on time, but when I think of that night, I just get happy. It was one of the best nights ever. So I went to the prom with one boy and I left with a different boy for good reason. And when I think about that, it's so much fun. It's so cute. It was such a happy moment in my 15-year-old existence that I think of that and I think that makes me happy. Try to think of a memory like that, either when you were the star of your school play, or when you passed your driver's test, when you got that first car, when you moved to a different country or a different state. Something, when you knocked on the door of that girl who said yes, she'd go out with you. Think of something super happy that every time you think about it, that little giddy happens. And once you have that memory, here's the part where it gets interesting. Attach a color to that memory. A color. For me, my prom, I was wearing a red dress. So for me, the color red is what I've attached to that memory. So whenever I think of that memory, I think of the color red. And what I can do now is I can flip that around. So now, whenever I spot the color red, I can let it remind me of that memory. And so if I'm having a horrible day, I can look around the room. I'm looking into your room right now, and your whole back wall is red. Whenever I'm having a horrible day, I can just look around and see the color red, and it reminds me of that tiny moment of pure happiness, and it stops that signal. It stops that downward spiral into unhappiness. It's a great signal disruptor. And I want to tell a tiny, quick, funny story about this. The audiobook engineer, there's an audiobook version of Happiness as a Second Language, and the audiobook engineer is somebody who probably listened to it more than any other human being. And he was having a really bad day one day. He was involved in an event that was going miserably, and he was driving his car between two parts of the event and so angry, and someone was ruining his day. It was supposed to be a fun day, and he started thinking, what am I supposed to do when I'm this unhappy? I'm supposed to think of a color. What's a happy color? A happy color is green. Green is a happy color. And he was at the stoplight, and he was looking at the street sign, and the street sign was green, and he thought, look at the green sign, that'll make you happy. And he was staring at the green sign, and it didn't make him happy. And he got so angry about that then he realized he was being ridiculous, and he laughed and decided to just be happy anyway. So it was a good influence. But when he told me this story, I said, oh, Mark, I appreciate that, but you were doing it wrong. I said, you're supposed to start with a happy memory and then let the color attach to the memory so that when you see that color, it reminds you of that memory. It reminds you of that moment of happiness. I said, so, you know, green doesn't really help you unless you've actually attached it to something. I said, so let's get this right. What was the happiest you've ever been in your life? And he said, oh, that's easy, when I was touring with a theater company in Ireland. So I said, gee, Mark, is there any color you might attach with Ireland? So it turns out he was doing the technique correctly. He just didn't know it. So that's a really good way to just have little boosts of happiness throughout your day. And if that color is going to make you happier when you think about it, make sure there's little splashes of it in your workplace. Make it the background on your computer screen. And the very last thing on the worksheet, and I realize I'm rushing so much, I want to be able to get through all this, and I want to be able to take more questions if anybody has them. I'll stay on the line a little while longer if anybody has questions. We need to get better at acknowledging for ourselves what we do at work and what we're accomplishing and what we're good at. And so every month, give yourself the Employee of the Month award. And what you do is think about what you did that month that was really successful, that was really great. And I just realized I have one here, I think, in my desk vicinity. Oh, I don't. So what you want to do, and this is not, I do this in the workshops, this is not the actual thing, but print up a certificate. This is going to make me crazy. I thought I had one at my desk. Print up a little certificate of you being the Employee of the Month. Think about what you did that month. The one I have from last month is I negotiated a contract that I was very proud of how it came out. And so I made up a little certificate. Valerie Alexander is Chief Negotiator of the Month at speakhappiness.com. And then I signed it. What are you, Jenna, you're saying?
That's just great.
Every month, at the end of the month, on the last day of the month, say to yourself, what did I do this month that I'm really proud of? If they were giving me the Employee of the Month certificate this month, what would it be for? And then write it down. These, a pack a pack of, oh, I have them. Wait. Here. See? These? A pack of 50 at Staples is $5. If you give yourself one every month, that lasts for 4 years. So think 4 years of happiness. You set it up for landscape on your printer, and you put 2-inch margins all the way around.
Fantastic.
And then make yourself a certificate. This is what I'm the employee of the month for.
That's fantastic.
And
So-
I will. Yes, I will. So if anybody has any questions or comments or wants to share more, I'm happy to stay on the line for a little while longer.
I got a question.
Yes.
Don't you ever get too happy and you really want to have a good cry and just kind of be miserable for a while?
That's a good one.
I have good cries all the time. One of the really great things I found is letting my goal in everything I do is to make happiness easy. Let's just make happiness easy. Let's give people techniques and practices and things they can work on to make raising their baseline easier, and then to make getting back to that baseline after a crash easier. But the big tenet of all of my work is we're human beings, and it's okay to be a human being. There's a technique that I teach called Count to 5, which is coming up with 5 things that are making you happy in the moment. It's not if you're having a horrible day and you need to disrupt that unhappy signal. Come up with 5 things that are making you happy in that moment. And sometimes I'll say, like the guy crossing the street in front of your, jaywalking in front of your car on the cell phone with the $4 latte, just tripped and dropped his phone and spilled his latte. And I always have somebody say, well, wait a minute, that shouldn't make you happy. And I say, why not? You're a human being. There's an article I read. People send me articles about happiness all the time. And someone sent me an article that was the 18 rules of happiness. And first off, rules. But one of the 18 rules of happiness was don't have negative thoughts. Yeah, I'll get to work on that right away. I've had negative thoughts since the start of this call. We're human beings. And I'll tell you something very important. I do a lot of brain science work. All of my work is based on brain science. And I have a certification in the science of happiness from Berkeley. And this is good to know. Our brain imprints negative messages 7 times more strongly than it imprints positive messages. Now that's fine. That's not because we're horrible negative people. It's because all of human existence is about survival. We've had 2 million years since we became hominids, which means we walk upright and we're not covered in fur. We've had 2 million years of brain evolution. In that 2 million years, our brain has tripled in size. And that brain tripling in size added all kinds of compartments for things we needed. We added a prefrontal cortex after we started living in tribes. We added a section in our brain for language after we started speaking with each other. And the evolution of that brain is 100% based on survival. So if you were to go back in time and pick who you wanted as your ancestor, who would you choose? The guy who always remembered, oh, that berry is delicious, or the guy who always remembered, oh, that berry is poisonous? We had to imprint the negative to survive, and that's okay. That's why we have the capability of reprogramming our brains. We have the ability to program our own brains by having positive thoughts. We can build neural pathways through proactive thinking, through mindfulness, through boosting happiness signals. We can do that. So when you say, can you be too happy? Yeah, I don't trust the person who's happy all the time. No. And believe me, I have my moments. I make sure I stay off of Facebook when I'm having them. But I have my moments. Just ask my husband.
I love your Valerie, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the Listen.Emerge.Become Google Hangout. And I think I speak for everyone in the room. We definitely want to have you back and definitely continue this conversation because I think it's very, very important and it's very helpful. Before I close off with you, I have one interesting question because I think it has to do with the comment you made that the atmosphere in a corporation or anywhere starts on top, bottom, and I hear that. What if at the top the leader is actually expressing to everybody under of the stress or challenging space that they're in? And isn't that also a form of positive leadership when leadership can actually be so transparent enough to let others know, listen, now it's your turn to help me up, or listen, this is a rough season, I'm going to need your back. What do you speak of that when you listen to leadership that recognizes that it's going through a rough season? And the leadership tells everyone it's a rough season, hang in there. What's your definition of leadership in that terms and the atmosphere that it can create?
Well, it's funny, just now when you were saying it, which kind of reflects how you are as a leader, you used the phrase hang in there, which is a reassurance. Transparency is not going to be damaging in any way. What is damaging is complaining. The military trains people. Complain up, lead down. Which means if you have a complaint, tell your boss. You can tell the person above you what you're complaining about. Don't tell the guys who answer to you. You need their respect. And so a leader telling their employees or their executives, this is not going to be a good year, is not a problem as long as it comes from a place of integrity and it comes from a place of honesty and transparency and it comes from a place of accomplishment. What can we do? Give everybody a stake in the outcome. Let everybody know you're important. You are important to this company. We're not having a good year. I need you to be this person. I need you to step up in this way. I need your help in this way. Bad leadership is, we're having a terrible year. What do we do? Because that doesn't instill any kind of confidence or happiness or even sense of accomplishment. If you can present to your employees, we have a problem and I need us to solve it, they're going to be so engaged. They're going to be so engaged with solving that problem with you and for you. If you present to your employees, the sky is falling, it's your fault, do better, they're going to check out. And one of the other things that employers have to do is self-accountability. A boss has to say, here's what I need you to do better, and here's what I'm going to do better. Because again, then everybody's on the team.
Right, very nice, beautiful. Thank you so much. So I think on behalf of all of us here, we want to thank Valerie with a big clap. And tell us a little bit about where we can get a copy of your book, and we need to really start to have the books inside here so we can definitely facilitate them. But where can our friends here get copies of your latest book? And please come back again.
I will absolutely come back again. I look forward to that. This was such a pleasure. The books are available on Amazon. So if you go to Amazon.com, you can, if you enter happiness as a second language, you'll get that books page. And then right below that is my name by Valerie Alexander. If you click on that, that takes you to the page for all of my books. So.
Great. Thank you so much. Hold the line for a little bit. We're going to close off with a little meditation. And